Now, today we are here to talk about the interview that took place between Dr. Boyce Watkins and Mr. Andrew Wyatt, the representative of Bill Cosby. They had a lot of great information that took place during this interview, and we are going to talk about it today. So buckle up your seatbelts, hit the thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. 1 second, guys. And so, Andrew Wyatt, he is the representative of Bill Cosby. He had an interview with Dr. Boyce Watkins yesterday on the Black Boss channel and on yourblackworldtv.com. And they spoke about a number of topics. I want you guys to really leave your thought. First, put your hashtag B1s in the chat. Hashtag B1s in the chat and where you're from. I like to see where everybody's from. I like to see the different places. Shout out to Danielle Craighead. She's here first. And I have a long list of notes to talk about as far as the representation, Mr. Andrew Wyatt, and what he had to say about Bill Cosby, about the case, about Cosby getting out. Shout out to Detroit. Detroit is here. And about everything. DC is in the building. DC is in the building. There was a lot. So first, what I thought was Dallas, Texas is in the building as well. What I thought was very interesting is that from the very beginning, Mr. Andrew Wyatt came out and said that this was bigger than Bill Cosby. What took place in this case and the fact that Bill Cosby was able to finally get released and get his just due and the legal system worked in his favor, rightly so, was bigger than Bill Cosby himself. Because he goes on to say that CNN and Gloria Allred and all of these different people, all of these different factors, Houston, Texas is also in the house, all of these different people, entities, and factors played a major role in the destruction of the image of Bill Cosby, in the destruction of the image of what took place, and the misconstruction of what actually took place. Now, granted, I have to preference everything by saying this. We do not know exactly what happened with Bill Cosby and these alleged victims. We do not know what took place, but in the 1960s and the 70s. We're talking about 50 and 60 years ago. We're talking about years and years and years ago. We do not know what took place between him and the lady from Temple. I can't even think of her name. We don't know. So I'm going to preference everything by saying this. But when you convict somebody, or when someone, you have a victim or an alleged victim, you have to say or provide evidence that what you're saying took place. You have to provide evidence of what you're saying took place. So if I accuse you of a crime, if I say you stole from me, you shot me, you stabbed me, you sexually harassed me, you sexually assaulted me, I have to have proof that took place. I can't just accuse you of something and hope you go to jail with no proof. So we have to preference everything I'm saying today by saying that. And in the case of Bill Cosby, there was zero proof. There was zero evidence. There was zero proof. It was Cosby's word versus her word, her word, her word. Now, there was a lot of hers. There was a lot of hers, but we're going to get into why there may have been so many women in the first place, because that's what Mr. Wyatt talked about. So what he first said, what Mr. Wyatt first talked about, he said it's bigger than Bill Cosby. One of the things he pointed out from the very beginning of this interview is over an hour long, and I've watched it twice now, was that none of these media members, none of these journalists, not CNN, not NBC, not Fox News, not whoever, did any background. He specifically called out CNN. They didn't do any background on these alleged accusers. Why is that important? Why is that important? Why is it important to do background history of who the alleged accuser or victims are? The alleged victims, rather. Well, if you dive into some of the background of some of the alleged victims, you'll find information about these women. You'll find, and not to say that this information means that they can't be sexually harassed, or that means that they can't be sexually assaulted, or that means that they can't be, X, Y, and Z. But as a journalist, you check your sources, you check your facts, you check everything, right? Like I've worked in media for a while now, so I understand how it works, especially news media. You go, you get a story. Say if somebody gives you a tip, like, hey, Jeff, I heard X, Y, and Z happen, right? It's like, okay, that's one source. You go check another source. Hey, I heard this. Did you hear this? And then you can go on the internet and research and do some stuff. So there's a lot of ways of multiple, dotting your I's and crossing your T's. CNN specifically is what he called out. Didn't do that. They didn't do any source checking, any background information on these women that allegedly accused Bill Cosby of doing whatever they said he did. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button, guys. Thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. Second, he goes out and he calls out straight from the jump, Gloria Allred. Now, Gloria Allred is the attorney. Well, what we thought was an attorney. Now we're also going to clear that up. What we thought was the attorney, Gloria Allred, went and paraded all of these women out as if, we're convicting Cosby. One thing that she worked on, what it sounds like from what Andrew Wyatt talked about, was convicting Cosby in the court of public opinion first. One of the things he talked about, he didn't use those exact words, but he talked about social media, and he talked about, the false narratives that were spread and how the court of public opinion can convict you before you're actually convicted in a court of law. They're two totally separate things, the court of law and the court of public opinion. And so when you have major media platforms like your CNNs, like your MSNBCs or Fox News or NBC or whatever, they can convict you and convince the masses that you are a guilty man before you have your day in court. And that's what happened with Bill Cosby. And that's what Mr. Wyatt talked about. He talked about how Bill Cosby didn't have a chance in hell, at least in the court of public opinion, because his side of the story was never told. His side of the story was never told. And one of the things the spark plug, the mass, because it was all a plan to, like I said, convict Cosby in the court of public opinion. That way you figure he doesn't have a chance in hell in court because everybody in their minds always believes he's guilty. One of the other things that took place was that there was a freelance journalist, and this is what Mr. Wyatt said, a freelance journalist, and this also sparked a lot. He paid Hannibal Buress, a freelance journalist out of Philadelphia who had beef with Cosby. They had a running in and they didn't really like each other that much or whatever. He had beef with Cosby. He paid the comedian Hannibal Buress to say a rape joke about Cosby. What does that do? Once again, now that the jokes are on, obviously Cosby has a history in comedy. More than one comedian are going to make the same jokes. Once it's like, a light that sparks the match, a match that sparks the flame. Once one flame is lit, now there's a million Cosby jokes out there. There's Jay-Z lyrics saying, how can Al Sharpton taking selfies in the mirror? How can him or Bill Cosby help me with something like, you know what I mean? Like it sparks a whole cultural phenomenon. Cosby jokes, Cosby lyrics. All without any evidence, guys. All based on lies. Now, once again, I am not saying Cosby is the cleanest man, has done everything right, has done everything by the book. But as of right now, July 7th, 2021, there is zero evidence that convicts Cosby of what these alleged victims are saying. So much so that they threw him in jail, and guess what? They had to take him out. The Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, the highest court in Pennsylvania, had to release that man. Why? Because there is no evidence. The only evidence that they allegedly have is this deposition that has been misconstrued over the years. For years, we have been told that Bill Cosby drugged and raped women, and he admitted to it. Any and everybody on television will tell you that Bill Cosby drugged and raped women, and he admitted to it in a deposition. That has been proven time and time and time again now that was never true. In my last video about Cosby, I showed you the actual screen of the deposition tweeted by Tariq Nasheed back in 2019. So tweeted 2 years ago. The question was asked, have you ever given women drugs and they were unknowing? Have you ever given women drugs and they didn't know that they were taking drugs? His answer was no. Have you ever sexually assaulted a woman while taking drugs? His answer was no. He never admitted to drugging and raping women. So, now that that's out there, let's dive into more what Mr. Wyatt says. One other thing, I got major points from Mr. White on this piece of paper. I don't know if you guys can see it, but one of the things Mr. White talked about was a man by the name of Zucker. Now, let me look up Mr. Zucker real quick. See, Zucker, CNN. Jeff Zucker. Jeff Zucker is a media executive. He was previously served as the CEO of NBC Universal. And then he was the president of CNN. He's the president of CNN. His name is Jeff Zucker. He was once the head executive of NBC. Mr. White pointed that out. He said, you remember now, let's remember now, Bill Cosby was in talks of buying NBC. Yes, Bill Cosby has paper like that. He was going to buy the news network NBC. So when you're going to buy a company, you have to meet with their top executives, the presidents, the owners, these guys like that. Jeff Zucker was the president or ran NBC. So he goes to meet Bill Cosby at his home. They have a dinner. During this dinner, now Zucker's the president of CNN now, but he was the top executive at NBC during this time when Cosby was looking to purchase NBC. So they have a dinner at Cosby's house. Mr. White, this is all according to Mr. White. Andrew White says that Jeff Zucker said something that was racist to Bill Cosby. Jeff Zucker is a Jewish man. So Bill Cosby responds back and calls him a Nazi. He says, get out, and called him a Nazi. These are all words from Andrew White. Don't believe me? Go watch the interview with Dr. Boyce Watkins. Once Cosby called Jeff Zucker, kicking him out of his house, called him a Nazi. Once Cosby called him a Nazi, Jeff Zucker said, I will get you back one day. You're gonna reap the day you called me a Nazi. I'm gonna get you back one day. So what ends up happening, when Cosby has all of these alleged victims and accusers that said he did X, Y, and Z to them, who was the president of CNN? The same company that didn't vet any of these women. They didn't check any of their story. They just paraded them out and put them on TV whenever they wanted to with Gloria Allred, their alleged attorney turned publicist. Jeff Zucker was the president. So of course they're not going to background check any of these women. Of course they're going to parade them out. Of course they're going to give them the biggest, brightest spotlight in the history of television. Because he had an axe to grind with Bill Cosby. Because he hated Bill Cosby for what he called him, a Nazi. Because he didn't like Bill Cosby, for that interaction that took place. So of course he's going to do any and everything he can to take down Bill Cosby, to put him down, to make sure he goes down. And that right there is media sabotage. They literally, it's right in front of our faces. With this information, Mr. Wyatt is putting it plainly in front of our face. So if one news network is doing that and getting a ton of ratings and putting these women on, don't you think the other ones are going to do the same? Damn, CNN's getting a lot of ratings every time they put a Cosby victim on or a Cosby accuser on. So of course we're going to put a Cosby victim on and a Cosby accuser on because it's monkey see, monkey do. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a copycat league. It's a copycat network. It's a copycat news cycle. Whatever bleeds, it leads. And this has to deal with America's dad and people saying that they took drugs together and that he sexually assaulted them and raped them. And now we have this deposition that we don't give a damn what it says. It says Quaaludes and sex and drugs and Bill Cosby. So we're just going to jumble all those words together and throw out whatever sticks. Oh, he admitted to drugging and raping them. That sticks. No. Like, are we serious? So shout out to Mr. Wyatt for clearing all of this up. All of that makes perfect sense. Does it not? Please leave in the comments, leave in the chat if none of that makes sense. The president of NBC, Jeff Zucker, at the time, or the head executive of NBC at the time, Jeff Zucker, said, I will get you back, Cosby. So as soon as the Cosby victims, accusers come out and he's the president of CNN, what does he do? Put them all over CNN, parades them all over CNN, make sure they get as much airtime and make sure they get as much, media coverage as they want. Mr. Wyatt was breaking it down. He had the receipts. You look up Jeff Zucker, you're going to find it. You're going to see it right there. Now let's move on. Another thing Mr. Wyatt brought up. He said Gloria Allred is a lawyer, but she didn't act as a lawyer for these victims. She acted as their publicist. Why is that relevant? Well, this is why it's relevant. Because Gloria Allred, he said, you can look it up from the LA Times, demanded Bill Cosby, Camille Cosby, and the Cosby estate to pay her and those victims $100 million, $100 million, $100 million. They can make all this go away. They can make all of this go away if they paid her and those victims $100 million. Camille Cosby shut that stuff down. Boom, closed it. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. No. $100 million, get it off the roof. Not doing it. She shut it down. So instead of getting their $100 million going away, she makes it bigger. She puts out ads in Los Angeles and says, if you were ever sexually assaulted by Bill Cosby, contact me. Contact this number. If you've ever had an encounter, a sexual encounter that you didn't want with Bill Cosby, contact me. Contact this number. With that $100 million price tag hanging out. Think about this, guys. She has a $100 million bounty, essentially, out on Bill Cosby. And if you call this number, you can get a part of it. You can get a piece, potentially. $100 million. And we know he got it. Hell, he tried to buy NBC. We know he got it. He was America's dad. We know he got it. He had the top two, two of the, at the same time, concurrently, the top two sitcoms on television. Bill Cosby, when he had the Cosby Show in a Different World. They were the top two sitcoms on American television simultaneously at the same time. He did that. Executive produce, starring in, writing episodes, developing characters. That Bill Cosby. So we know he got it. So don't you think, in Los Angeles, one of the biggest cities in the country, one of the biggest cities in the world, you put out an ad knowing that $100 million is on the table. And of course, people are going to come out the woodworks. People came out of the woodworks. Mr. Wyatt said there was a story of a woman who was homeless, sleeping on the streets. Homeless, sleeping on the streets. Gloria Allred and her team, this is all according to Mr. Wyatt, said that they took her in, cleaned her up, and got her in front of cameras as soon as they could because she had an interaction, allegedly, with Bill Cosby, a sexual interaction. She was on the streets, guys. She was on the streets. Mr. Wyatt also pointed out that there were women who said they couldn't remember. He said these are in depositions. These are in court documents. He said they couldn't remember whether they consented or not, or if they even had sex or not with Bill Cosby because they were so high off the drugs. This is all according to Mr. Wyatt. But none of these stories have been made public. This is the first time. Now leave your thoughts in the chat. Let me know if I'm wrong. This is the first time I've heard any of these stories. If this is your first time hearing these stories, let me know. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments. Is this the first time you've ever heard these stories about the $100 million bounty put on Bill Cosby, about going and getting homeless women off the streets, cleaning them up, about Gloria Allred actually being these people's publicist so that way she could work around the law or the ethics of law? Let me know in the chat, please, if you had ever heard any of these things. Mr. Wyatt was putting out information that we needed to know as a public. Bill Cosby is a staple in our households. Bill Cosby, well, I mean, I was born in 95, so I caught the Cosby Show on rerun on like the Nick at Night, and I watched A Different World, and I felt like it changed my life. Like I watched it on Amazon Prime like in the last couple of years, and I'm like, yo, like this is perfect television. Like this is what I call perfect television. The symbol of strong black men and strong black women and different characters and different personalities. And they weren't super athletic, you know what I mean? They were smart. They were educated. Dwayne Wayne was an engineer. And you had some bratty ones like Whitley. You had some earthy people and Kim that was like super smart. Like, like that is perfect television. This is Bill Cosby. This is the one that made all of this possible and put it out to the masses. And not only did he put it out to the masses, it was well received. I'll talk about the #1 and #2 shows on television at the same time. And they're trying to destroy that man. And once again, he's not a perfect man, but no man is perfect. Name me the perfect man. Show me the perfect man, and then I'll shut up. So obviously he's made some mistakes in his life. But the onslaught and the destruction of his reputation is just incredible. It's just incredible. It gets even deeper, according to Mr. Wyatt. It gets even deeper, right? So not only does that take place, so remember I told you it's a copycat league, right? CNN is parading all of these victims, all of these accusers all over the networks. So obviously the other networks want to get in on it. He said that the same station, NBC, that Bill Cosby was going to buy, right? NBC flies all of his alleged victims out to Philly and paraded them around, all expense paid for a trip. And they're moving around like celebrities. They're supposed to be victims of sexual assault. Mr. Wyatt said that they were signing autographs, that they were taking pictures, that they were having photo ops, that they had an all expense paid for trip by NBC to Philly. Come on, man. I mean, come on. Where does it stop? Where does it stop? When does it end? I don't know. Mr. Wyatt was breaking stuff down, man, all the way down. He also went in and talked about Bill Cosby's first trial, right? Now, this is the part that really made me mad, right? And all of this is according to Mr. Wyatt. Don't believe me? Go watch his interview with Dr. Boyce right here on the same channel. He said during the first trial, there was a hung jury. So it ended up being a hung jury. But he said they interviewed one of the jurors after the hung jury verdict came out, after 15 hours of deliberation. He said the juror told him that they came back immediately with a not guilty verdict and that the judge sent them back to deliberate for longer. Now, if that isn't injustice, if that isn't sacrilegious, if that isn't just horrible, I don't know what is. You mean to tell me this group of jurors comes to you with a not guilty verdict? A not guilty verdict. I don't care if it took them 5 minutes. Not guilty is not guilty. And you send them back to deliberate for longer? In what world is that right? Like, in what world is that right? I don't know one that should have ever been allowed. I don't know, man. I do not know. Andrew Wyatt's interview with Dr. Boyce about Bill Cosby. Andrew Wyatt is the head representative of Bill Cosby. He runs all of his social media. He report everything goes through Andrew Wyatt as far as PR goes, as far as Cosby's image. He was there. He picked him up from the jail. He brought him home. He was raised. Look up Bill Cosby in his first day release, or look up Andrew Wyatt, Bill Cosby. You'll see Andrew Wyatt everywhere throughout the trial. Picked him up from jail, brought him home, brought him his favorite meals, brought him his favorite food. Now that he's back home and all of this stuff, like all of that is real. You can fact check that. You can Google that. That stuff's easy to find out. But what's so, like I said, so disheartening, so crazy, so unbelievable is the fact that the American justice system put an 80-year-old black icon through all of this with zero evidence. Now, once again, do I know what Cosby did? I don't. But they don't either. And you don't either. The only people that know what Cosby did is Cosby at the end of the day. And so to put an 80-year-old man who's meant so much to so many people, so much to so many people through his programming, through his work on television, through his comedy, he's made so many people laugh. through his generosity. He's a philanthropist to the umpteenth extent of the word, a philanthropist to the umpteenth extent of the word, giving millions of dollars to HBCUs, giving millions of dollars to Howard University, a university that has come out and been their damnedest to separate themselves from Cosby. Well, if that's the case, Howard, give Cosby back some of those millions or all of those millions he gave to your university. Give Cosby back that money. All of these people that seem to know what the hell happened, even though there's no evidence and no proof, and it's just his word versus her word. Since all of these people seem to know what's happening, all of you guys that Cosby donated money to, millions of dollars over decades. We're talking about Cosby's been a public figure since the 60s. He's giving millions of dollars for educational programs, especially to HBCUs. Give him his damn money back. Give him his money back. If you want to disassociate yourself so much from Bill Cosby, then give him his money back. If you don't want to allow people like Felicia Rashad, who knows Cosby probably just as well as anybody, who worked for him for years, who's known him for even longer, hell, he gave her away at her wedding to Ahmad Rashad, then give him his money back. If you want to disassociate yourself so much, I mean, this is crazy. People can't even speak on Cosby anymore. And you get, it's like, whoa, stay away, Cosby, no. What? Where was all that energy when he was donating to your philanthropic idea or charity or whatever? That energy wasn't there. Mr. White also spoke about some of the civil rights leaders like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson not showing Cosby no love. He told a story about Jesse Jackson. You know, Jesse Jackson ran for president in the 80s, right? Jesse, run for president. Run, Jesse, run. Like all of that. Like, I wasn't born, but I've seen the videos and I've heard the chants. And Jesse Jackson, and I think Cosby, and even Mr. Wyatt, they're all like cues. So this is like a chant that the cues say that has to do with Jesse Jackson running for president. And Cosby, Bill Cosby, Dr. Bill Cosby, we're not going to put no BS on his name. Dr. Bill Cosby actually allowed Jesse Jackson to use he and Dr. Camille Cosby's private jet to get to his different campaign locations. Cosby donated millions of dollars to Jesse's campaign. And Jesse hasn't said one word about the releasing of Cosby, about the unjust jailing of Bill Cosby. Nothing. Al Sharpton. Mr. White said he spoke with Al Sharpton in 2015. He gave Al Sharpton a call. Once again, someone who Bill Cosby has helped elevate his career, has helped him in any way he could. He said he gave him plenty of money for different things that he's done. He said he gave Al Sharpton a call in 2015. I'm talking about 6 years ago now, guys. He said Al Sharpton said, "Oh, you know, I'm running. I'm headed, getting in the car right now. I'm gonna give you a call back once I get settled." He said he's still waiting on the call. Hasn't heard from Al Sharpton in 6 years. Come on, man. None of that is right. These people ought to be ashamed of themselves. All that man has done for you, for your career, for your livelihood, for your life, and you don't even have the decency of giving them a call, giving them a shout out, say welcome home. None of that. These people ought to be ashamed of themselves, man. I love the interview between Doc and Andrew Wyatt. Andrew Wyatt told us a lot of things, and I hope you guys continue to like and share this broadcast and like and share, especially that one, more so that one than this one, because Mr. Wyatt told it all and told the truth and had receipts and told you where to look and go find it for yourself. And that is justice. That is justice. Not this crucifying Bill Cosby in the media BS. Actual real justice is what took place. And now that Bill Cosby's home. Also, Mr. Wyatt revealed, and I don't know if you guys know this. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat if you knew this. He said Bill Cosby's 100% blind. Now think about that. We're talking about a man, and he said he's been blind for years now. We're talking about an 83-year-old man. He was 80 years old when you sent him to jail. Who was 100% blind. 100% blind. with no evidence, just her word versus his word, in an illegal form of prosecution. And people can't speak on that? You're not allowed to say, welcome home, Bill. Felicia Rashad isn't allowed to say thank you for overturning your illegal sentencing. An 83-year-old man who didn't allow his family to come see him while he was in jail, who, when they gave him the opportunity to say, hey, just admit you did it and we'll cut your time, said, to hell with that. I'll do all 10 years before I admit something I didn't do. Who is Bill Cosby, who most people can't even imagine doing as much as he did for the black community and for black people. They can't even imagine it, let alone go out and execute it. You can't even imagine doing what Bill Cosby did. And they sent him to jail. If you're not allowed to speak about him or give him praise, you tell me what world that makes sense. Just tell me, what world does that make sense? I don't know. Once again, I'm Jeff Lightsey Jr. with the Black Boss Channel and Victory Formation. Follow me on Instagram. I post content on there all the time. And be sure to subscribe to the Black Boss Channel. It's at theblackbosschannel.com. We post content every single day, thought-provoking content. We come in, we talk about it, we discuss it. I look at the comments, I discuss the comments, and we go from there. Thank you guys so much for checking me out. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button.